first report of a wartime monster sighting comes from an anonymous US Army Special Forces squad member who was tracking a Taliban person of interest in the mountains of Afghanistan. The squad's objective at the time was to observe a village for several days, in the hopes of witnessing suspicious activity or persons, which was hoped would inform and lead to a successful raid. The team comprised 6 men at the base, with 2 others whose job it was to observe the village at close quarters. Over the course of a few days, suspicious activity was indeed witnessed by the squad, just not the sort they were expecting. Almost immediately, the team experienced technical problems. They had trouble maintaining radio contact due to static. Believing the magnetic content of the rocks to be the issue, the eyewitness describes leaving the squad's base with some of the other men to reposition the SATCOM in an attempt to get a better signal. It was around dusk at the time. As they neared the SATCOM, one of the soldiers spotted a man in a white robe running through the rocks just outside the village. Lacking reliable communication and worried about the mission being compromised, the men packed up their equipment and got ready to move. They were all on high alert as they trekked back to their outpost. Covering their tracks as they moved through the darkness, the witness stresses the carefulness with which they retreated. Regardless, every so often he claims he would catch a fleeting glimpse of something white moving in the distance. After a short while, he reported what he had seen to the others. An officer said that he had seen the same thing. They were being followed. The sense of urgency and panic increased. They were a small unit, completely exposed, without means of communication. Not only that, the witness reports that everything felt strange. The air felt heavy and sort of sweet. The silence hummed loudly. Now enveloped in the darkness of the night, the team put on their night vision goggles. With the world cast in a perfect green haze, they scouted their surroundings. The men could see nothing and no one moving behind them. However, the danger of the night was far from concluded. What the witness describes as having happened next is chilling. Hallucinations happen, but what happened was beyond comprehension. First we heard a sound like a huge airplane taking off, a loud, low buzz that slowly increased in pitch. We had to yell over comms to hear each other. Everywhere I looked, I kept seeing what looked like glowing eyes staring back at me, but once I would center my focus on where I saw them, they would disappear. We were panicked. Everyone was holding their rifles at the high ready. We were expecting some kind of ambush attack. Then it all stopped. Everything got dark. The only thing I could hear was my breath and the blood pumping in my head. We stopped, dug into the side of the mountain, and performed stop, look, listen, smell for about 10 minutes. Nothing, not even bugs. The air and the land were silent. The team was thoroughly spooked and overcome with fatigue, and eager to get back to the camp. However, they were very aware that something waited in the darkness for them, something which, very possibly, had intentions to harm them. They moved quickly through the scrub until they were met by the sight of a man dressed in light-coloured robes. The man was slowly making his way towards them. According to the witness, the way he moved was unnatural. He seemed to pass through any and all obstacles in his way as though they were made of air. In the eyewitness's own words, he seemed to melt over and around the rocks. Through the night vision goggles, his eyes glowed. I scoped up on him and saw that he was looking directly at me. It was pitch black. There is no way he could have seen us from that distance without any kind of night optics. Suddenly, he stopped. He picked up one of his limbs and held it in the air, almost like he was waving at me. Then the arm melted back into his form, like it wasn't an arm at all, but some kind of extendable proboscis that was meant to look like an arm from a distance. I was about to ask the guys if they could see him when he suddenly disappeared. After he disappeared, the team, shaken and weary beyond words, were finally able to make their way back to base. In the distance, they saw lights flickering near the village. They all but forgot about both this and the strange otherworldly man until a few days later. According to the witness, on that very night, the village they had been observing was raided. However, it was not the raid they had been working to inform. As he describes, apparently the team that moved into the village found it completely abandoned. They also found several men in the area where I had seen the lights that night. The corpses had been ripped to shreds, and based on the sheer amount of blood, the general consensus was that there were more men that were killed there than just the bodies that were found. It went in the official records as a successful raid, with several enemies killed in action. Unofficially, no one has any idea what killed them. All I know is, whatever it was, it chose those men, and not us. Whatever the men saw that night, and whatever happened to the village, remains unknown.